One stormy night, my 6-year-old niece called me crying. "I'm alone, starving, please help uncle." I rushed to my parents' house where she was supposed to be under their care. What I found there made my blood boil. Imagine receiving a phone call in the dead of night. A child's voice on the other end. Barely a whisper, terrified. My 6-year-old niece Zoe told me they'd locked her up, that she was scared and hungry. Then the line went dead. That call didn't just break the silence of the night. It shattered everything I thought I knew about my own family, exposing a betrayal so profound it still makes my blood run cold. In that instant my world tilted. Pure, unadulterated panic slammed into me. I called my parents, Zoe's grandparents, who were supposed to be raising her. But the phone just rang and rang into an empty void. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice. I tore out of the house, speeding through the torrential rain, every instinct screaming. When I finally reached their place, it was pitch black, silent, the front door bolted tight. I didn't hesitate. I smashed a window, climbed inside, and what I saw in the dark silence of that house, well, it solidified the ice forming in my veins. My name is Elias Turner. I'm 37, just an ordinary guy from Bowling Green, Kentucky. My life until that moment was stable. I worked as a mechanic, covered in grease, fixing cars, then came home to my incredible wife, Hannah, and our 8-year-old son, Rocky, a wild little rascal but with a good heart. We had this cozy wooden house, a backyard big enough for Rocky's soccer ball and Hannah's vegetables. Every morning it was coffee, a kiss goodbye, then into a day of metal and engines. It wasn't rich, but it was mine. It was fulfilling. Or so I thought. Because to truly understand the horror of that night, I have to take you back. What happened to my sweet Zoe wasn't some random accident. No. It was a tragedy, years in the making, the bitter fruit of cracks in my own family that I deliberately, foolishly ignored. I kept hoping time would just fix them. My younger brother Jetson was 5 years my junior. He was the golden child, born in what my parents called the lucky year. Jetson was brilliant. I remember him as a kid in Nashville, sketching intricate machine diagrams for hours while I was out playing. Dad, a rough around the edges construction worker, would beam with pride. "My boy's going to be an engineer. Change our family's fortunes." And Mom, Robin, she doted on him even more, always saying he was sensitive like her. I wasn't jealous. Jetson was my little brother. I loved him. We shared everything. I left for Bowling Green at 18, married my high school sweetheart Hannah. Jetson stayed, excelled in college, became a mechanical engineer, top of his class. He married Mia, a gentle, beautiful woman, and they had Zoe when he was 28. Holding Zoe for the first time, it was like holding a piece of Jetson's soul. Big round eyes, curly hair, a smile that could melt anything. They had it all. A great job, a big house. We'd meet for holidays and I'd joke, "Don't forget your poor older brother now that you're rich." He'd just laugh, clap me on the back and say, "Elias, I'll take care of everyone." Life felt perfect. Then disaster. A swift, brutal storm. Jetson was 30. Mia was driving Zoe home, a shopping trip. A drunk driver head-on. Mia died instantly. Zoe, miraculously, survived with minor injuries. But Jetson? He shattered. I drove like a madman to Nashville. He was just sitting by Zoe's bedside, a ghost of himself. "Mia, she's gone," he whispered, his voice broken beyond repair. My heart absolutely crushed. Mia was his world. From that day Jetson changed. He tried to be strong, worked, raised Zoe with my parents' help. But the pain, it was too much. He started drinking. One glass to forget, then bottles. He quit his job, holed up, forgot to eat. I called him every week, trying to reason. "Jetson, you have to live for Zoe. She needs you." He'd promise, but he'd always relapse. One night, a drunken call at midnight. "Elias, I can't take it anymore. Why did life take Mia?" I listened, tried to comfort him, but a crushing helplessness washed over me. My job, my family in Bowling Green. I was tethered. It got worse. Sedatives for depression, but he abused them, taking too many. His mind clouded. Zoe, just 3, felt it. She smiled less, often just sat alone with her mom's old toys. My parents, Stone and Robin, who lived blocks away, stepped in. They'd pick up Zoe, feed her. Dad, always practical, always about appearances, wanted the family to look perfect. Mom, always talking about her sacrifices, would urge Jetson to get help, but he'd snap back. "I can handle it." The last time I saw him before everything unraveled, it was a scorching summer. I drove to Nashville. Jetson was slumped on the sofa, empty bottles everywhere, dark circles under his eyes. Zoe ran to me, her tiny voice. "Uncle Elias, Daddy's always sleeping." My heart clenched. I dragged Jetson into the backyard. "You have to snap out of it. Zoe needs you. If you can't, let me take her for a while." He just shook his head, tears streaming. "I don't want to be away from her, but I'm dying inside, Elias." I hugged him, promised to help, but deep down I knew the worst was coming. And it did. Early one morning, Mom's trembling voice on the phone. "Son, Jetson's gone. He left Zoe at our doorstep with a letter." I was stunned. I raced to Nashville. His letter, messy and desperate. "Dad, Mom, Elias, I can't care for Zoe anymore. I need time to heal. Please take care of her. I'll come back when I'm better. Love you all. Zoe, barely 4, stood trembling beside my parents, clutching an old teddy bear. She looked at me, her eyes glistening. Where's Daddy, Uncle? I couldn't answer. I just held her, promising her dad would be back soon. My heart felt like it was being crushed into dust. My bright little brother, the one who was going to achieve great things, he had abandoned his daughter. I knelt down, looked into her big, lost eyes, fighting back my own tears. Don't worry, sweetheart. Uncle's here. Grandpa and Grandma will take care of you, and I'll visit often. She nodded, but her eyes were still searching for an answer I couldn't give. I stood and faced my parents. Dad, silver-haired, sturdy, arms crossed, deep in thought. Mom, wiping tears, muttering, "How could Jetson do this?" I didn't blame Jetson. I understood his pain. But leaving Zoe like this, hanging between hope and despair, it tore at me. Mom, Dad. I kept my voice steady. You'll take care of Zoe, right? She needs a stable home. Dad nodded firmly. Of course, Elias. She's our granddaughter. Mom added, resolute. Don't worry, son. I'll treat Zoe like my own. I stayed that day talking to Zoe, telling her stories about her dad as a kid, promising to bring Rocky over. She smiled, but it was a faint, fragile thing. My parents handled the legal stuff, became her official guardians. They started getting a monthly foster care stipend, about $500. Our family's responsibility, Dad said. We'll do it well. I felt a wave of relief. They were my parents. Zoe's grandparents. I trusted them to love and care for her. First, everything seemed fine. I went back to Bowling Green, back to the garage. I called weekly. Mom would say, Zoe's doing great. I bought her new dresses, baked cookies. Dad would boast. Took her to the park last weekend, she loved it. My heart warmed. Zoe was cared for. Loved. That's all I wanted. Hannah, my rock, reassured me. Don't worry too much, honey. Your parents are adults. Zoe will be fine. Rocky was excited, desperate to visit his cousin. I promised him we'd go soon. In those first few months I visited when I could, but it wasn't often enough. The drive to Nashville was over an hour. The garage was always hectic. Hannah had her hospital shifts, Rocky had soccer. Life just pulled me along. But every time I thought of Zoe, guilt gnawed at me. I need to visit her more often. Weeks bled into months and I settled for phone calls, listening to Mom's cheerful updates. Zoe's doing great, Elias. She's learning to draw. On the rare visits, Zoe would light up, hug Rocky, and they'd play in the yard. Watching them, I'd breathe a sigh of relief. Zoe still smiled. She still had some of her childish innocence. But I didn't see the silent cracks beginning to form, deep beneath the surface. About a year later, things changed. On a visit, Zoe wasn't vibrant anymore. She was thinner, her cheeks hollow, her skin pale. She sat in a corner, clutching her teddy bear, barely speaking. Zoe, what did you eat today? I asked. She hesitated. Bread and cheese. I turned to Mom, trying to keep my voice calm. Mom, Zoe looks too thin. Are you feeding her enough? She laughed it off, dismissive. Kids, Elias. She's picky, but I'm working on it. Dad chimed in gruffly. Don't worry, we're taking good care of her. She's fine. But Zoe's eyes, they unsettled me. They no longer sparkled. They were distant, searching for something far away. I tried to convince myself my parents were doing their best, that they loved her. But a terrible feeling started to creep in. I began noticing small details. New expensive items in their house. A big screen TV, new handbags for Mom, Dad bragging about dining out. Where was the $500 monthly stipend going? Was it truly for Zoe? I suggested, Mom, Dad, let Zoe come to Bowling Green for a week, play with Rocky. Hannah would love it. Mom immediately refused. No, Zoe's not feeling well. She's used to us. Dad added. You and Hannah are too busy. How could you manage? I tried to argue. But she needs a change. Robin just brushed me off. She's attached to me, Elias. Don't worry. I was frustrated, but I didn't want to fight my own parents. I told myself to trust them. But the guilt over Zoe wouldn't let me go. Every night, lying next to Hannah, I'd ask, do you think Zoe's okay? Hannah, always the optimist, would squeeze my hand. Honey, your parents are adults. Zoe will be fine. But I couldn't shake the feeling I was failing her. Called more often. Always the same cheerful updates. Zoe just ate a big meal. She's playing in the yard. I wanted to believe them, but my heart remained heavy. Meanwhile, Jetson remained a ghost. I'd spent thousands on a private investigator, but found nothing. He'd simply vanished. Zoe sometimes asked, Uncle Elias, why is Daddy taking so long? I'd hug her and lie. He's just gone away for a bit, but he'll be back soon. I had no idea when or if he ever would. Time passed. Zoe turned 5, then 6. Each visit she looked thinner, quieter. Once she whispered, Uncle, I want to live with you. I ruffled her hair. I'll take you home soon, Zoe. Just wait for me. But when I brought it up with my parents, they refused, always with an excuse. She's too weak, Elias. Let us take care of her. I grew deeply suspicious. My parents, so obsessed with appearances, Didn't want anyone to know Jetson had abandoned Zoe, or that they weren't caring for her properly. But their true love for Zoe? I was no longer certain. My visits became less frequent not because I didn't care but because life in Bowling Green was overwhelming. The garage, Hannah's shifts, Rocky's school. I kept telling myself, Mom and Dad are taking care of Zoe. I don't need to worry. But that gut feeling grew stronger, a persistent whisper of dread. I didn't know that the cracks were now widening into chasms. That my trusted parents were growing indifferent, misusing the stipend, and that poor little Zoe was silently, heartbreakingly, suffering in the place that was supposed to be her sanctuary. I never imagined that a year later, that midnight phone call would obliterate my trust, dragging me into a nightmare I'd never forget. Then came that night. The rain was torrential, Bowling Green engulfed in thunder and the lashing of water. I just finished a grueling day at the garage, aching and smelling of oil. Hannah was asleep after her night shift, Rocky lost in 8-year-old dreams. I sat in the living room trying to shake off the nagging unease. 2 years since Jetson disappeared. Zoe now 6, still with my parents. I called them days ago and Mom had said, Zoe's doing fine. But her voice had been rushed, like she wanted to get off the phone. I dismissed it, overthinking Elias. Then the phone rang. A sharp jarring sound that cut through the night. Midnight. An unfamiliar Nashville number. My heart hammered. Hello. I whispered. A tiny trembling voice, as if from another world. Uncle Elias, I'm locked up. I'm so hungry. I'm scared. It was Zoe. Her voice frail, halting, holding back sobs. I froze. My hand gripped the phone until my knuckles were white. Zoe, where are you? Locked up? How? Tell me. Only static. Then dead air. I frantically called back. Useless. No answer. Panic surged, a tidal wave drowning all reason. I shook Hannah awake. Hannah, Zoe called. She's locked up. I'm going to Nashville now. Hannah, eyes heavy with sleep, gasped. What? Calm down. Call your parents first. My hands were shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone dialing their number. It rang and rang. Nothing. Mom's mobile. Nothing. My heart felt like it was being crushed. Zoe was in danger. I felt it, as real as the biting cold rain outside. Hannah, I'm going. Stay here with Rocky. I'll call you. I grabbed my jacket keys, not waiting for her response. The rain lashed the windshield like blades. The wipers fought a losing battle. The hour-long drive felt endless. I floored the gas. Tires screeched. Thunder roared, but it couldn't drown out the frantic pounding of my heart. Locked up. Hungry. Scared. Those words drilled into my chest. Where were my parents? How could they let Zoe call me like that? Her voice so terrified. All those lost eyes, her frail body I'd ignored, trusting my parents. I wanted to punch myself for my blind stupidity. The highway was a black tunnel, my headlights battling the rain. I called Zoe's number again, then my parents. Nothing. Maybe they're asleep. Maybe Zoe's just scared of the storm. But deep down I knew. Zoe didn't exaggerate. If she said she was locked up, it was true. I pressed harder on the gas, the car hydroplaning, but I didn't care. The image of tiny Zoe, clutching her worn teddy bear, flashed in my mind, making my eyes sting. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, I reached their neighborhood. The old wooden house loomed in my headlights, shrouded in rain. Completely dark. Not a single light. I parked, jumped out, soaked in seconds. I pounded on the door, shouting, Dad! Mom! Open up! Where's Zoe? No response. I banged harder, my hands raw, but only the rain answered. I ran to the back door, bolted shut. Rage and fear twisted inside me. Where was Zoe? If my parents weren't home, how did she call? If they were, why weren't they answering? I didn't think. I grabbed a massive rock from the yard and smashed the side window. The shattering glass drowned out the thunder. I carefully cleared the jagged shards and climbed inside. The familiar smell of old wood and musty air hit me, but it brought no comfort. Zoe! I screamed, flipping the light switch. No power. Darkness swallowed me, only my phone's flashlight cutting eerie beams across the walls. I tore through the first floor. Living room, kitchen, dining room. Nothing. My mind reeled. Where were they? Where was Zoe? I raced upstairs, 2 steps at a time, calling her name. In the second-floor hallway, a faint sound, a soft whimper. I froze. My heart pounded. Zoe, where are you? The whimper came again, from the small room at the end of the hall. The storage closet. I ran, pushed the door. Locked. Zoe. I banged, my voice ragged. A weak voice from inside. Uncle Elias, I'm in here. I didn't hesitate. With every ounce of strength, I kicked the door. The weak hinges gave way with a splintering crack. In the dim beam of my phone, I saw her. Curled up in the corner on the cold floor, with only a thin blanket. She was pale, cheeks sunken, eyes hollow. Her tiny hands clutched her teddy bear, as if it were the only thing keeping her tethered to this world. You finally came to get me, Zoe whispered. Her voice so faint I had to kneel to hear it. I scooped her up. She was frighteningly light, as if all strength had drained from her. "You're okay now, Zoe. Uncle's here." I choked out, my own voice breaking. She trembled in my arms, ice cold. I looked around the room. No bed. No food. Just a few crumbs of dry bread. An old phone lay in the corner. A school friend's, I realized. She must have used it to call me. Rage surged through me so hot it burned, but I suppressed it. Now wasn't the time. I carried Zoe downstairs, wrapping her in my jacket, shielding her from the rain. "Uncle's taking you to the hospital, okay?" She nodded weakly, her head on my shoulder. I rushed to the car, gently placed her in the back, covered her with a blanket from the trunk. The rain soaked through my clothes, but I didn't feel the cold. All I felt was panic and a burning righteous fury. I sped to the nearest Nashville hospital, calling Hannah on the way. "Hannah, I found Zoe. She's not okay. I'm taking her to the hospital." Hannah gasped. "Oh my God. What's wrong? Where are your parents?" I gritted my teeth. "I don't know. They're not home." At the hospital, I carried Zoe into the emergency room. Nurses swarmed, placed her on a stretcher, wheeled her away. I stood there drenched, staring through the glass doors. Zoe, so small, so frail, surrounded by doctors. A nurse approached. "Are you the child's relative?" I nodded. "I'm her uncle, Elias Turner." She scribbled something down. "We'll check on her right away. Please wait here." I sank into a waiting room chair, my hands shaking uncontrollably. The image of Zoe, curled up in that locked room, haunted me. My parents. How could they let this happen? The stipend, their promises, were they all lies? I called them again. Still no answer. I texted Hannah, telling her to stay with Rocky, that I'd update her. But in my heart I knew. Everything had changed. The dark house, the locked door, Zoe, the little girl I loved like my own, left starving and terrified. I swore to myself right then, no matter what, I wouldn't let Zoe suffer anymore. The hospital was brightly lit, but the atmosphere felt chillingly cold. I sat there soaked, clutching my phone like a lifeline. Zoe on that stretcher, pale, sunken eyes, it was seared into my mind. How could my parents let this happen? The question stabbed at me. Then the ER doors swung open. Dr. Apollo Patel, a kind-faced man, stepped out. "Elias Turner, the girl's uncle?" I shot up. "How's Zoe, doctor? Is she okay?" He sighed, his voice low. "I'll be straightforward. Zoe's condition is serious. Chronic malnutrition, prolonged starvation, physical exhaustion, and signs of psychological distress from extended neglect." His words hit me like a physical blow. Chronic malnutrition, prolonged starvation, psychological distress. I shook my head, numb. How? She lives with her grandparents. They get a stipend to care for her. How could she be starving? Dr. Patel looked at me with deep sympathy. "This didn't happen overnight, Mr. Turner. Zoe has been malnourished for a long time. Months, even a year. She's severely underweight, vitamin deficient, and her mental state is unstable. You need to contact Child Protective Services. This shows signs of serious neglect." I sank back into the chair, my mind reeling. The memories flashed. Zoe's gaunt frame, hollow cheeks, lost eyes. "I want to live with you, Uncle," she'd whispered. And I just smiled, patted her head, believing my parents' reassurances. Zoe's picky. She's fine. Why are you worrying? The doctor's words tore through the flimsy facade of lies I'd built for myself. I had failed Zoe. I had let her suffer in silence. "Doctor," I choked. "Will she be okay? She's everything to me." He placed a hand on my shoulder. "We'll do our best. She's young, her body can recover. But she needs proper care, physically and mentally." I looked through the glass doors again. Zoe, eyes closed and four in her arm, a bird with broken wings. What had she endured? Days, months of neglect. Locked in a dark room, hungry, afraid. And my parents. Stone and Robin. The people I trusted. The $500 stipend. Robin's new handbags, the big screen TV, Dad's fancy dinners. The truth slammed into me with brutal force. They'd spent it on themselves. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms. The rage burned again, but I forced it down. Zoe needed me calm. I pulled out my phone and texted Hannah. Zoe's malnourished. It's bad. I'm at the hospital. She'll be okay. Hannah's instant reply. My God, Elias, how did it come to this? I'll come tomorrow. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Robin. My heart tightened. I answered, my voice ice cold. "Mom, why are you calling so late?" Her voice was rushed, hesitant. "Elias, where are you? Have you seen Zoe? Your dad and I went to a friend's party, and when we got back she was gone. The side window, it's broken." Party. They left Zoe alone, locked up, to go to a party. It was unthinkable. I wanted to scream, to drive back and confront them, demand the truth. But I held back. I pretended ignorance. "What do you mean Zoe's missing? You left her home alone." I emphasized each word, struggling to keep my voice steady, though pure fury boiled inside. Robin fumbled. "Well, we thought she was asleep. We were only gone for a bit. Did you take her?" We saw your missed calls. I heard Dad in the background gruff. Tell Elias not to make a big deal out of this. I clenched my jaw. Their blatant deceit. They weren't worried about Zoe. They didn't know she was fighting for her life in a hospital. They just wanted to cover it up, save face. Mom, I said, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. How could you leave a 6-year-old alone? You knew she was frail. Why weren't you home? Robin's voice rose defensive. Elias, you're talking like we abused her. We just stepped out. Zoe's well behaved. Stone cut in, his tone sharp. You dare blame us? You're too busy to care for her, so don't lecture us. I was speechless. Not a single word of apology. Not a hint of genuine concern. Only blame and wounded pride. I wanted to scream the truth. Tell them Zoe was dying because of their neglect, but I stopped myself. If I spoke now, they'd deflect fake concern. I had to protect Zoe first. Fine, I said, my voice cold as ice. I'll look for Zoe. You two should look for her too. If you find her, call me immediately. I hung up before they could respond. Standing in that hospital hallway, the world had collapsed. My parents, the people who raised me, whom I trusted. They hadn't just neglected Zoe. They'd betrayed her. Used her stipend to live comfortably while she starved, trembled in a locked room. A nurse checked Zoe's monitor, her eyes full of pity. Zoe, I won't let you suffer anymore. But I knew to keep that promise, I'd have to confront the horrifying truth about my own family. My parents weren't just indifferent. They had abandoned Zoe, leaving her to live in hunger and loneliness. I had to act not just for Zoe but for my own conscience. I called Hannah again, my voice shaking. Hannah, they left Zoe alone to go to a party. I'm calling the police. She can't stay with them. Ever. Hannah sobbed. Elias, how could they? Whatever you do, bring Zoe to us, okay? I nodded, though she couldn't see. I will. I promise. I hung up, looked at Zoe. Frail. But alive. That was my only glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be brutal. My parents wouldn't give up easily. They'd blame me, fight to save face. But I was resolute. Zoe would never return to that house. Never. Sitting in that hallway, it felt like I was in the eye of an endless storm. The steady hum of machines in the ER was a constant reminder. Zoe was fighting. But I knew the real battle was just beginning. I took out my phone, took a deep breath, and called the Nashville Police. Nashville Police Department. How can I assist you? I tried to keep my voice calm, but my heart was still pounding. I want to report an incident. My niece, Zoe Turner, 6 years old, was left alone at her grandparents' house. I went to check. The house was locked. No one was there, and she was missing. I paused, choosing my words carefully. I didn't mention finding Zoe, or the hospital. Not yet. I needed time. To gather evidence. To ensure Zoe's safety before my parents could find out. The officer asked for details. Address, description, information about her grandparents. I answered briefly, my voice stiff, masking the rage boiling inside. We'll send someone to check immediately, he said. Can you come to the station to provide more information? I agreed, but my mind was already racing. I couldn't just sit and wait. I needed the truth. The full truth about what had happened to Zoe for the past 2 years. The $500 monthly stipend. My parents' promises. It was all a lie. I had to find irrefutable evidence. I looked back through the glass. Zoe was more stable now, the nurse said. I thanked her, my heart still heavy. I needed to act quickly before my parents realized Zoe was here. I drove straight back to their house. The rain had stopped, but the sky was dark and overcast. The house was still pitch black. My parents were probably out still looking for Zoe, or maybe just pretending to. I climbed back through the broken window. Inside, the familiar smell of old wood and mildew now sent shivers down my spine. I turned on my phone's flashlight and went straight to Dad's desk. He always kept important documents in that old drawer. My heart raced as I rummaged, finding a stack of bank statements. Their account showed the monthly $500 stipend, as expected. But the transactions that followed, my blood boiled. Cash withdrawals, shopping sprees at malls, restaurant bills, even a short trip to Memphis. There was no trace of purchases for Zoe's food, clothes, or school supplies. I snapped photos of every single receipt, my hands trembling with white-hot anger. The money meant to nurture Zoe had been squandered on their own selfish luxuries. I kept searching, moving to Mom's wardrobe. New handbags, expensive shoes, a fur coat she'd once bragged about. I thought of Zoe's lost eyes, her frail body, and felt like someone was choking me. They had let Zoe starve while using her money to live lavishly. I photographed everything, meticulously noting each detail. This was evidence. But I needed more. I decided to talk to the neighbors. Cheryl, an elderly woman who often sat on her porch, lived next door. I knocked, though it was nearly 2 a.m. Cheryl opened, her eyes surprised but filled with concern. Elias? What's going on? I saw you break into your parents' house earlier. I took a deep breath and briefly explained finding Zoe, without mentioning the hospital. Cheryl, have you heard anything strange about Zoe, my niece? Cheryl sighed, her eyes heavy. Elias, I don't want to speak ill of your parents, but I've heard Zoe crying a lot, especially at night. Once Robin scolded her, told her to be quiet, not to bother them. Stone would yell that she was naughty and wouldn't eat. She paused, her voice trembling. I asked about her once, but Robin said Zoe was just being whiny. She looked so thin, so I brought over some cookies, but Robin wouldn't let her take them. I clenched my fists, barely containing my fury. Did you ever see them leave Zoe alone? Cheryl nodded many times. They'd go out at night, leaving her at home. I was worried, but I didn't dare interfere. Her words were another stab. I thanked her, promised to return, and went back to my car, my mind reeling. The pieces were falling into place. Zoe wasn't just neglected. She was scolded, left alone in the house that was supposed to be her sanctuary. But I needed more, especially from her school. The next morning, I called Maplewood Elementary. I spoke with Zoe's teacher, Rebecca Allen. I'm Elias Turner, Zoe Turner's uncle. I'd like to know about her school performance. Miss Allen hesitated. Mr. Turner, Zoe is enrolled, but she's barely attended. She's been absent for over 90% of the school term. My heart sank. How is that possible? Didn't her grandparents say anything? Miss Allen sighed. We sent multiple warnings but got no response. I called once and Robin said Zoe was often sick, but never provided medical records. We were very concerned, but legally we couldn't intervene further. I asked her to send me Zoe's school records. She agreed, and that afternoon the email arrived. The records confirmed it. Zoe had attended only a few days, then almost entirely absent. Teacher notes described her as withdrawn, quiet, appearing tired. Reading them, my eyes stung with tears. Zoe wasn't just neglected at home. She'd been deprived of education, of socialization, of the chance to live like a normal child. I returned to the hospital, carrying the arsenal of evidence. Bank statements, photos of Robin's luxury items, Cheryl's testimony, and Zoe's school records. Zoe was in recovery, more alert, the doctor said. I sat by her bedside, holding her tiny hand. Zoe, uncle's here. You won't have to go back there. I whispered. She looked at me, her eyes still fearful, but she nodded weakly. Uncle, I don't want to stay with Grandma and Grandpa anymore, she said, her voice faint as a breeze. I hugged her, vowing right then I would do everything to bring her to my family. I knew what came next. A lawyer. A custody battle. My parents wouldn't give up easily. They'd fight, not out of love for Zoe, but for their pride and for that stipend. But I was ready. For Zoe, I wouldn't back down. I immediately started looking for a lawyer. Hannah recommended Jennifer Lawson, a sharp family law attorney in Bowling Green. The next morning I met her, laying out the thick stack of documents. Bank statements, photos, Cheryl's handwritten testimony, Zoe's school records. Jennifer, a blonde woman with piercing eyes, flipped through each page, her brows furrowing tighter and tighter. Elias, she said, her voice low. This is serious. This evidence clearly shows neglect. The bank statements in particular are compelling. The stipend was obviously not used to care for Zoe. I nodded, struggling to suppress my simmering anger. Jennifer, I just want Zoe to be safe. She can't go back to her grandparents. Jennifer looked at me, her gaze softening. I understand. We'll file a custody lawsuit. You're a direct relative with a stable job and family. Your chances are strong. Jennifer worked fast. She prepared the lawsuit, detailing everything. Zoe's malnutrition, educational neglect, the neighbor's testimony, the blatant misuse of the stipend. I provided more information about my family, about Jetson, and Zoe's 2 years of torment. Each time I recounted the story, it felt like someone was squeezing my heart. I had let Zoe suffer for too long, all because I trusted my parents. Now I had to make things right. A week later, the lawsuit was filed with the Nashville Family Court. I received notice. My parents would be served with a summons within days. I knew. Once they received it, things would explode. Sure enough, that evening my phone rang. It was Robin. Her voice was icy, a stark contrast to the feigned concern from days earlier. Elias, what kind of nonsense are you pulling? You're hiding Zoe. And now you dare sue your own parents. Who do you think you are, accusing us of neglecting her? I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. Mom, I'm not making accusations. I have proof. Zoe was malnourished, locked in a room, abandoned. How do you explain that? Robin's voice sharpened, venomous. You're making this up to get the stipend, aren't you? You want to steal her from us for the money. Her words cut like a knife, but I wasn't surprised. My parents, always obsessed with appearances, always believing everything revolved around money and pride. Stone grabbed the phone, his voice booming. Elias, if you don't drop this lawsuit, we'll disown you. I gripped the phone, my heart pounding, but my voice remained cold. Dad, I won't drop it. I'm doing this for Zoe, not for money. If you really loved her, why did you let her starve? Let her tremble in fear in a locked room. They hung up, leaving me with a long cold beep. My family, already fractured, now shattered completely. I sank onto the sofa. Hannah hugged me from behind, whispering, "You're doing the right thing, Elias. Zoe needs you." I held her hand, feeling like I was clinging to a life raft in a raging storm. The following days were a blur of tension. My parents called repeatedly, sometimes threatening, sometimes feigning apologies. "Elias, you misunderstood," Robin said in one call, her voice unnaturally soft. "We only went to that party once. Zoe was fine." I didn't respond, just hung up. I couldn't trust them. Every time I heard their voices, I remembered Zoe curled up in that dark room, her trembling voice on the phone. "Uncle, I'm so scared." No matter what they said, I wouldn't waver. Zoe deserved a real home, and I would give her that. Jennifer called a few days later. "The court has set a hearing date 3 weeks from now. Your parents have hired their own lawyer, and they're trying to dismiss the neglect allegations. They claim Zoe was just sick, and you're exaggerating to gain custody." I shook my head, unsurprised. "Jennifer, I have evidence. The doctor, the neighbor, the school. They all confirm the truth." Jennifer nodded. "Exactly. We have a strong case. But brace yourself. The hearing won't be easy. Your parents and family dynamics will make this more complicated." I knew she was right, but every time I thought of Zoe, I knew I had no other choice. I visited Zoe at the hospital every day. She was starting to eat small amounts of porridge but remained quiet. I told her how Rocky worried about her. About our house in Bowling Green, about Hannah's garden. "You'll love it there," I said, ruffling her hair. Zoe gave a faint smile, and for the first time I saw a tiny spark in her eyes. That was my motivation. That was everything. The day of the hearing arrived. The Nashville courtroom atmosphere was heavy, like the sky before a storm. I sat at the plaintiff's table next to Jennifer, clutching my stack of evidence. Across from us, my parents sat upright, their gazes icy. Dad, in an old suit, tried to project dignity. Mom kept wiping her eyes, playing the role of a grieving grandmother. Their lawyer, a slick, middle-aged man, looked at me as if I were a traitor. Zoe wasn't there. Jennifer said it was better for her mental state, but I felt her presence in every single moment. Judge Franklin Moore, a tall man with a stern face, struck his gavel. "Let's begin." Jennifer stood, presenting our case. Zoe's malnutrition, educational neglect, the misused stipend, the neighbor's testimony. She called Dr. Apollo Patel first. He took the stand, his voice calm and steady. Zoe Turner suffered from chronic malnutrition, prolonged starvation, and shows signs of psychological distress due to extended neglect. This condition didn't develop in a few days. It's been ongoing for months, possibly a year. My parents' lawyer tried to counter. "Doctor, could the child simply have been sick or a picky eater?" But Dr. Patel shook his head firmly. "No. This is evidence of severe lack of care. A 6-year-old cannot cause this condition herself." I looked at my parents, hoping for a trace of remorse. Mom just lowered her head. Dad frowned, as if he were the victim. Next, Cheryl, the neighbor. Her voice trembled on the stand. I heard Zoe crying many times, especially at night. Mr. and Mrs. Turner often left her alone, going out late. I once brought food, but Robin wouldn't let Zoe take it. Their lawyer tried to twist her words. "You only heard crying. Kids can be whiny, right?" But Cheryl stood firm. "No, it wasn't whining. Zoe was scared. And I was worried for her." Rebecca Allen, Zoe's teacher, followed, presenting school records showing Zoe's 90% absence rate. "We sent warnings but received no response," she said. Zoe was barely attending school. Judge Moore took notes, his expression growing more serious. Jennifer then presented the bank statements, highlighting my parents' extravagant spending. Handbags, dinners, a trip to Memphis. The $500 monthly stipend was meant to care for Zoe. "There is no evidence it was used for that purpose," she argued. My parents' lawyer countered, claiming they had cared for Zoe, and that I was stealing her for the stipend. Jennifer fired back, sharp and clear. "Mr. Turner has a stable job and family. He doesn't need the stipend. He just wants his niece to be safe." Then it was my turn. I took the stand. I looked directly at the judge, my voice trembling but resolute. "Your Honor, I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this for Zoe. She was locked in a room, starved, denied an education. I'm her uncle, and I want her to live in a safe environment where she's loved." I glanced at my parents, hoping they'd finally hang their heads in shame. But Dad glared at me and Mom just turned away. My parents took the stand next. Mom sobbed, claiming they loved Zoe, that she was just sick. Dad accused me of making up stories to tear the family apart. But the evidence, it was overwhelming. Judge Moore called for a recess, then returned with his ruling. "Based on the evidence and testimonies," he declared, "this court grants custody of Zoe Turner to Elias Turner. Mr. and Mrs. Stone and Robin Turner will be monitored by Child Protective Services, and the foster care stipend will be terminated." The courtroom fell silent. Robin burst into tears, but I knew it wasn't for Zoe. It was for her pride. Dad stood, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You'll regret this, Elias. You're no longer my son." I just looked at him, saying nothing. My heart ached, yes, but I had no regrets. I had chosen Zoe, and it was the only right choice. After the hearing, Jennifer patted my shoulder. "You did well, Elias. Zoe will be safe with you. I nodded, my heart still heavy with the wreckage of my family. But I drove back to the hospital where Zoe was waiting. I sat by her bedside, held her hand and said, "Zoe, you're coming home with Uncle. Everything will be okay." She smiled faintly, hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her face. The feeling of her small hands clinging to me, weak but full of trust, warmed my heart like nothing else. I knew that from now on I wasn't just Zoe's uncle. I was her second father. A few days later, Zoe was discharged. Dr. Patel gave me detailed instructions. A special diet, regular psychological monitoring. Her mental state is still fragile, he cautioned, but with love and care she'll recover. I committed every word to memory. As I carried Zoe to the car, she hugged her old teddy bear, looking out the window with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. "Am I going to meet Aunt Hannah and Rocky soon?" she asked, her voice tiny. I ruffled her hair. "That's right. They're waiting for you at home." The drive to Bowling Green was strangely peaceful. I put on a cheerful children's song, hoping to help her relax. She gave a faint smile. I knew I was doing the right thing. When we arrived, Hannah and Rocky were waiting at the door. Hannah ran out and enveloped Zoe in a tight hug. "Welcome home, Zoe." Rocky, with a wide grin, held up a small soccer ball. "Zoe, I'll teach you how to play soccer." Zoe was shy, but her eyes lit up at the warm welcome. I looked at Hannah, feeling her unconditional love. "Thank you," I whispered. Hannah squeezed my hand. "We're a family, honey. Zoe is our daughter now." The first few days, Zoe was still scared. At night, she'd wake from nightmares crying. One night, I rushed into her room and found her curled up in the corner of the bed, clutching her teddy bear, whispering, "I'm scared. They'll lock me up again." I held her, soothing her. "No one will lock you up anymore, Zoe. Uncle's here. Aunt Hannah's here. Rocky's here. You're safe now." Gradually, Zoe began to trust us. The nightmares lessened, but I knew the wounds in her heart would take time to heal. I took her to a child psychologist, Dr. Allison Pierce, a gentle but professional woman. During therapy, Zoe slowly opened up, sharing stories of her time with my parents. The days she was left hungry, locked in her room, scolded for crying. Each story was like a knife twisting in my heart. "Uncle Elias, I just wanted to make Grandma and Grandpa happy, but I always did something wrong," she'd say, tears welling. Dr. Pierce would reassure her. "Zoe, you didn't do anything wrong. You deserve to be loved." I sat outside the room listening, my heart breaking, but I also felt hope. Zoe was slowly regaining her confidence. At home, we gave her a normal life. Hannah cooked nutritious meals, chicken soup, homemade cookies, helping Zoe gain weight. Rocky became her best friend, fiercely protective. One day, I saw him holding her hand, leading her to the backyard for soccer. "Don't be afraid. I won't let you fall." Zoe laughed loudly. The first time I heard her clear, carefree laugh. Those moments. Hannah singing lullabies, Rocky playing with Zoe, our family gathered at the dinner table. They were medicine for both Zoe and me. I enrolled Zoe in Rocky's elementary school. On her first day, she held my hand tightly, anxious. "Uncle, what if the teacher scolds me?" I knelt down. "The teacher will love you, Zoe. And Rocky will be right there with you." Rocky, nearby, puffed out his chest. "That's right. I'll protect you." Zoe smiled. She was starting to settle in. Her teacher gave her special attention, reporting that Zoe was doing well, though still shy, and Rocky was always by her side, ensuring no one bullied her. As the months passed, Zoe blossomed. She gained weight, her cheeks grew rosier, her smile more frequent. Hannah and I turned the living room into a play area, filled with toys and books. Every evening we read bedtime stories, tales of courage, of family love. One night Zoe hugged me before bed, whispering, "Uncle Elias, you're the best dad in the world." My heart melted. Zoe had found her home, and I knew that despite her painful past, she had a bright future ahead. 4 years passed in a blink. Zoe was now 10, a lively girl who loved painting and playing soccer with Rocky. She called us Dad Elias and Mom Hannah, which filled us with both emotion and pride. Rocky, now 12, remained her devoted big brother. Our family was a tight-knit unit, but there was still an empty space in my heart, a space named Jetson. My younger brother, who vanished 4 years ago, remained a mystery. Alive or gone, I prayed he'd found peace. One autumn afternoon, while I was working on a car, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number. "Hello, who's this?" On the other end, a familiar voice, deeper, more mature. "Elias, it's me. Jetson." My heart skipped a beat. "Jetson," I whispered, hardly believing it. Where are you? Are you okay?" He gave a soft laugh, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm okay. I want to see you and Zoe. I'm in Bowling Green." I raced home, my mind in turmoil. Hannah and Zoe were in the backyard. When I told them, Hannah hugged me. "Oh my God, Elias, he's back." Zoe looked up, curious. "Dad, Jetson, is he really back?" I nodded, holding back tears. "Yes, Zoe. Your dad's back." An hour later, Jetson appeared at our doorstep. He had changed. Thinner streaks of gray in his hair, but his eyes were bright, full of life. Dressed in a sharp suit, he was no longer the man drowning in alcohol and pills. When Zoe ran to him, Jetson knelt, enveloping her in a hug, tears streaming. "Zoe, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for leaving you," he choked out. Zoe clung to him, sobbing. "Dad, I missed you so much." I stood there watching their reunion, my heart torn between joy and pain. Jetson turned to me, gripping my hand tightly. "Elias, thank you. Thank you for saving Zoe, for giving her a home." I shook my head. "Jetson, I just did what was right. You're my brother. And Zoe's your daughter." Jetson shared his story. Over the past 6 years he'd sought therapy, gone to rehab, then moved to California to start over. He was a successful entrepreneur now, running a small tech company. He stayed with us for a week, reconnecting with Zoe. He played with her, took her to the park, told her about his fight to overcome his pain. Zoe slowly warmed up to him, though she still called me Dad. Elias. Jetson didn't mind. He just smiled. "Elias, you deserve to be Zoe's dad." Then he made a surprising declaration. "I'm cutting ties with Mom and Dad. After what they did to Zoe, I can't forgive them." I nodded, understanding completely. I too couldn't forgive what our parents had done. The years of Zoe's neglect, hunger and fear in that locked room had left scars not only on her, but on Jetson and me. But now, seeing Zoe smile brightly beside her father, I knew we had overcome the darkness to find light. Our family, once shattered, was now rebuilding from the pieces, with Zoe at the center of our love and hope. One morning Jetson called me to the backyard. "Elias," he said, his voice low but firm, "I've decided to take Zoe to New York. My company there is doing well, and I want her to have a fresh start, a new home." I looked at him, seeing the maturity and determination in his eyes. Jetson was no longer the lost brother. He had found himself. Now he wanted to give Zoe the best future. I nodded, though my heart felt heavy. "You're right, Jetson. Zoe deserves that. But you have to promise to take good care of her." Jetson gripped my hand, his eyes glistening. "I promise. And I'll bring Zoe back to visit you often. We're family." Zoe ran out, hugging both of us. "I'll call Dad Elias and Mom Hannah every day," she said, her voice clear and bright. I ruffled her hair, holding back tears. "We'll be waiting for your call, Zoe." On the day Jetson and Zoe left, our whole family saw them off at the airport. Zoe hugged Hannah tightly, then jumped to hug Rocky. "Rocky, I'll miss you so much." Rocky, trying to act tough, had red eyes. "Study hard, Zoe. I'll come visit you in New York." As Jetson and Zoe passed through security, she turned back to wave, her smile radiant like sunshine. I stood there watching, feeling both proud and wistful. Zoe had found safety and love, but I knew I'd miss her every single day. A few days later, while cleaning my desk, I found an envelope. Inside was a check for $1 million signed by Jetson. A small note accompanied it, in his neat handwriting from our school days. Elias, this isn't to repay a debt, because nothing can repay what you've done for Zoe. This is for you and Hannah to have a better life. To thank you for being an amazing brother to me and a second father to Zoe. I held the check, smiling. Jetson had truly rebuilt his life. Meanwhile, I heard about my parents through an acquaintance. Stone and Robin lived in isolation in their old house, rarely going out. After the trial, the community learned the truth about their neglect of Zoe. Their old friends kept their distance, whispering about their selfishness. Cheryl, the neighbor, told me Robin had tried to apologize to her, but her voice was full of false remorse. "They live in loneliness," Cheryl said. "They know they were wrong, but their pride won't let them admit it." I didn't feel joy hearing this. Despite what they'd done, they were still my parents. Part of me ached, thinking of them, old and left behind in their own arrogance. But I didn't reach out. I had chosen Zoe, and I had no regrets. Sitting in our backyard, looking at the garden Hannah and Zoe once tended together, I reflected on everything. The fight for Zoe wasn't just a battle against my parents. It was a battle against myself, against the naivety of believing family would always put love first. I learned that true love requires sacrifice, courage, and sometimes the willingness to cut ties with toxic relationships. Zoe taught me that with her resilient smile and the way she overcame darkness to find light. If I had advice for anyone, it would be this. Listen to your instincts. When I saw Zoe's gaunt frame and lost eyes, I chose to believe my parents' lies. And it nearly cost her future. Don't wait until it's too late. Protect the ones you love, even if it means confronting your own family. And most importantly, never give up hope. Zoe survived. Jetson returned. And I found the true meaning of family, not just in blood, but in love and responsibility.